Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Heavenly Father, all glory and honor goes to you. We praise your name for the times that we've fallen short, for the times that we didn't live up to your expectations and our own expectations. We ask for your forgiveness, and we help us. Please help us to try to do better. We thank you for this community, this lovely community that we live in, for all these people that are increasingly coming out to be more involved in their township and village and school boards, because the more voices we have, the better things will be. We thank you for the patriots that came before us, that gave us this great country, and we hope we live up to the model that they set up for us. We hope that you will help us discern what your will is for us, that we can move forward and fulfill that will that you have for us, and act on it, and help us to pray for those that perceive us as our enemies. We are not. We're all trying to do something that's to better our community, fix where we live, and we ask all of this and more, and everything we have privately in our mind, through Christ our Lord. Amen. Amen.
Now, welcome everybody. It's going to be an interesting day today. We got Stephanie Trussell at the end, so she'll talk and answer questions and be real cool. So the first thing was the chairman's report, and there's really not a lot of stuff going on with the party itself. We're gearing up for the June 28th elections, so that's a primary. And I got a primary. I got two people running against me and Tony Granata, and I feel like we can win. We just got to get everybody to go out and vote. And Tony's a 30-year-old guy from Frankfurt Square, and I'm a real old guy, 72, from Homer Glen. So, you know, but we got a lot of fire. You know, between the two of us, we'll burn everything down to get our message out. And we're going to do it. And we got a lot of friends. So thank everybody for coming here. We got Tim Mozinga, and I believe he's unopposed. And then we got Judge Art, and we got Don, Judge Don. We got a lot of judges. And what we're gonna do is, just like we did the last election, I'm gonna put together a list of all the people we're gonna be voting for that we support. So probably in May, like the first week of May maybe, or second week of May, we're gonna do an endorsement thing where everyone comes and we're gonna vote to endorse people. And we could do it on the 28th, that's our next meeting, but it would take too long maybe. Maybe not, maybe that's all we do. I'll talk with the committeemen to see what they want, but we're either going to do it on the 28th of April, but that would be after Gary Rayvine speaks, because he's going to come that day. And then if not, we'll be doing it on something like the first or second week of May, so that everyone will see who the Homer Republicans endorse. Pretty much everybody in the room that's running, we endorse you guys. I would bet on it because they don't know the other people. So why would we endorse a bunch of people that don't bother coming? And Pat Sheehan's not here because he's at the Lockport Township Park District meeting. Otherwise he'd be here. And he's part of it. But you guys don't know all the names, so just tell your friends and neighbors when it comes time that you got to get out and vote, because the vote, if there's a primary, it's going to be real low, because it's June 28th, people are on vacation. 4th of July is like a week away. So it's going to be hard to get people to come and vote. So that means vote early. And then we have to decide, we're going to have a committeeman meeting to decide if we're going to do a mailer. We don't have a lot of money left because we're paying the rent. And not all the candidates kicked in the money that they're supposed to pay yet. But I have confidence that they all will. So once we get all that, I'm hoping that we have enough money for at least one mailer to get the vote out. Because that's important, I think, to get the vote out for that thing. And then we'll have a big fundraiser to get the money to win in November. So we're going to back whoever wins in the primary. I don't care who it is, we back them. Because Republican that we didn't like is way better than a socialist that we really despise, right? So that's where we're at with the elections. If anyone got any questions when we go to mugshots, I'll be glad to talk to you about it. But I'm not clear on the actual direction. And then with that, we're going to bring up which one of the people we got. We have two school groups that are kind of like working together, but there's two of them. So Jay and Christina and Karen and Jim and Angel. You know, who wants to talk first?
Go ahead. I'm here too.
Okay.
We're going to have, you're going to talk when we're done.
So right now, where we're at with the school board, we reached out, we've got a few more parents in our little group, and what we're doing is, if you get the opportunity, go to the March 21st School 5 School Board meeting on YouTube, and you'll see the public comment. What we've learned over the past 3 or 4 weeks, our main goal is really just trying to get organized now, so that we not only have a message, but that we're not just repetitive, that we actually have a schedule of what we need to accomplish. And a lot of things have come forth. The big thing has been the masks and all, obviously the COVID mandates, which really led to everybody getting fired up. But there are so many other issues that we are finding from parents coming in and talking to us that really need to be addressed in the school. I don't want to get into just everything now, but if you know, if you are interested in, you know, giving us some ideas as to what is bothering you with the schools, then, you know, you can either private message me. There's ways to get in touch with me or anybody in our group. I would say either Angel or Christina MC, my wife Karen, Tom Williams. What I would say is that eventually we're going to be opening up our little group to more and more people. But right now, as we're getting our feet wet, our focus is really for around November, getting ready for the 2023 elections for the school board. So that's really all I want to let out at this point. Okay.
Thanks. Anybody else on this? Okay. Then Mike.
Yeah, I've been around to a lot of these high schools, Joliet West, Manuka, Lockport, a lot of grammar schools, and we're talking. And what I found out when I was talking to the parents, even when I gave my little message up there, which maybe the superintendent didn't like too much, was cameras in the classroom. I can't tell you how many parents really think that this would solve a lot of situations. I'm talking even at Joliet West. I'm talking about the blacks, the Hispanics. They says, we can get on our telephone and see what Sonny Boy is doing in the classroom, or see what the teachers are teaching. Just on this here device. I was shocked, and I'm not one to really know anything about technology. But technology itself, and they would say, well, how did you come up with this idea? Well, I was up in Michigan, in Huron County. They have it there. The parents wanted it there because when something was happening, and the teachers would say, hey, this guy is a clown. The parent says, my Sonny Boy is not like that. They would just show it right there. It ended. So now they just teach history, math, science, and they don't have to correct these students, or they don't have to correct even the teachers there if they're teaching the CRT, if they're teaching something else besides math, history, or whatever to their kids. So this is one thing I was trying to dwell when I was out there. I just seen it. I'm like, Steve, I'm an older guy. I didn't have to go out there and say these things. But it was just interesting to hear the parents come back and say, it's a great idea, but I never saw a movement on it. I know Iowa now is trying to vote on it, with it, and we all know about the unions, and they would be probably against it, which is true. But this is my taxpayers' money. I pay $4,500, and I'm seeing these kids, they can't even write their name, which is a shame. So that's all I'm going to bring up. You can think about that. You can think about it too. I saw Darren Bailey a couple of times and talked to him about it. And because you guys run the school, you set up the board. And I would like to see my money spent wisely. not what it's being spent on now. People pulling their kids out of this, homeschooling, bringing them to faith school, Catholic schools. They don't even want the public schools anymore. So that's just my input. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Zion, you want to come up and tell everybody what the school superintendent, what's that?
Is there somebody else who had to do?
No, you're going to come up and talk.
All right. I'm ready to get in more trouble.
Zion is a person that's been voting not to enforce mandates like the mask and the shot and the rest of the stuff and separate kids into groups so that they're like something like they're lepers or something. So he's been voting with the parents, and they don't want him on the board. And so he's been going through a little bit of torture over there. And David, so I can't say his last name. Yes, Shokokis. He volunteered to be a lawyer for Zion, and so now the school's kind of left him alone, I think. So do you want to take it from there?
Do I look good on camera? Is my hair okay? I might as well look good if I'm going to get in more trouble, right? Like 4K wise, yeah? Okay, so there's been like a lot of talks about what's been going on. I've gotten in trouble for basically introducing myself and just reminding people when the board meeting is. But I'd like to move past that. I just want to share with everybody what my main focus, what my main goal was. I wanted to be able to remind people when the next meetings are. Because I personally think it's important for us to know when the meetings are. And that's for everybody, whether it be, you know, the Republicans, the Democrats, everybody who's in the community needs to know when these board meetings are and they need to show up. Because it doesn't really make sense if it's true that there are these people on both sides who are not acting. That's a problem regardless of who it is. So I just wanted to say that after some talks with my board, we were able to come to an agreement that the school, because we hire certain people to, you know, make public posts, make posts to Facebook, that it should be their responsibility to make those posts. And I agreed with them. I said, you know what, you guys are completely right. I should let those people do their jobs when it comes to, okay, 1 week before the meetings are to start, they'll make those posts. And I'll share it because it is also like my own responsibility to help those people do their jobs, whether it be posting it to our own page or Democratic page. Again, it is about getting more people involved. Now, there's another thing that I wanted to address. You guys know that I can read the messages you send to the superintendent, right? There's been, huh? Yeah, I can. Yeah. I try, but when there's like 500 messages to look through, sometimes I miss some other stuff. But I can also see that there have actually been some Democrats who have been accusing me of being a little bit partisan in the way I'm approaching this entire situation. Like, for example, there's been some people who found out from reading our agenda that I'd be showing up here to be able to speak, and they've complained as me being partisan. Actually, yeah, I have this little book that actually lists a lot of the policies that that the school board has. And one of the policies, it's actually one of the first responsibilities of the school board, is that the Board of Education should function as a nonpartisan, broadly representing body. Each board of education member should let his or her consideration for the entire district take precedence over partisanship and special interests. Why I bring that up is I've actually reached out because, yes, I'm doing this, I'm speaking to you all as a service to you, but at the same time, I don't want to infringe on that responsibility where I'm supposed to be nonpartisan. And because of that, I've actually also reached out to the Democratic Homer group and asked, like, hey, is it possible if I can come in, if I can introduce myself, and also speak, get to know little people? Because again, part of my job is to be nonpartisan. A lot of people have accused me of some of those messages as being like, hey, you should have given it, you shouldn't be leaning more towards this party. And listen, that's not true at all. I've reached out to the other group and I've made sure, like, hey, you know, I'm here. But I haven't really gotten word about I haven't gotten any responses from them. So in the event that any of them are watching here, I have offered to reach out and speak to some of you, because it is important for me to know all members of my community, whether or not they're Republican, Democrats, Socialists, Anarchists. I don't know what else. There's so many. Huh?
Satanists.
Yeah, Satanists. They're Satanists. I'm sure there's at least one Satanist within something. Okay, everybody's a voter, and I feel it's important for me to reach out and speak to as many people as I can, regardless of how opposite or whatever their views are to me. So if anybody's watching, just reach out to me. I'd be happy to speak to anybody. And it doesn't even have to be a partisan group. Like if Carolina Lakes, I don't know if they'd be watching something like this, or if any group, there's like a local bowling team, anybody. I'd be willing to meet and speak with any groups, because it is important for me to meet in groups, meet groups of people. And I guess that's really all that I have to say. Thank you.
That red book.
It's actually a book that I have that's
But let me tell you something. This is still the United States of America. They can't deny you freedom of speech. So if it says that book is unconstitutional, because the book can't deny somebody from speaking out.
No, that's true.
So, you know what? The school guys, there's another issue. Their actual crap that they got in their Bible, that's how it kind of looks, like a fake Bible, but it's unconstitutional. Because as a citizen of the United States, you could say anything you want about anything you want, anytime you want, and nobody can tell you you can't. So you can go burn a flag if you're a creep, or you can salute the flag if you're a hero. So, I mean, you can do whatever you want. That's why we're Americans. So there's another thing to hit them people with, that their actual stupid rules are unconstitutional.
You have a question from Mr. Stoner.
That book looks like the little red book that Chairman Mayo put out.
There's something that I keep with myself so that I can remind, because sometimes I also forget what some of the policies
See, I
are.
wasn't planning on getting worked up today.
No, I consider this more than now that the school is actually making posts and reminding everybody when the board meetings are, I consider that an absolute win. I consider that a victory for all of us. Because now, we get to move forward.
Parents start coming?
Yeah, it's good.
We're the only ones all the time.
We can.
Tired of being the only ones.
Now we're going to have Stephanie Trussell. She's brought up here in Bailey. Then she's going to answer questions, and then she's going to go to the bar with us, maybe. And but she ain't going to drink. She'll drink pop with me.
Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to come out and speak. I'm so impressed that you guys have a stable place to meet. In my township, we kind of rely on the kindness of restaurants and hotels that allow us. It's great to have a place where people can come and get the materials that they needed. It's good to be in a safe space, as you see. President Reagan and Lincoln and, Teddy. I don't know if you guys have ever read how he got shot right before he was giving a speech and gave the speech anyway, having been shot by someone. So talk about a tough Republican. Well, as he said, I am Stephanie Trussell. So blessed to be Darren Bailey's Lieutenant Governor pick, and hopefully people in this room now have heard of Darren Bailey. He's that Southern farmer, and people don't know his name, will say that Southern farmer that sued the governor way back in June, July, or summer of 2020. He initially was on the school board for a long time. He was like a lot of us. We just think that we were trusting our elected officials. His elected official went ahead and voted for a tax increase under what I can't remember what governor, and so he decided, you know what, I'm going to run for state rep. He won, he ran and won, and then after that he ran for state senator. So now he's in his first term as a state senator, and with everything that was going on, he was the only one to step up in Springfield. He teamed with Tom DeVore, and that's why our children don't have to wear masks anymore. And so then he felt led to run for governor. He's been in this race for over a year. He is a third-generation farmer, and like so many other people, our neighbors that put out that graduation sign, and then they put out the sale sign when that last kid graduates. Darren Bailey is a farmer. He can't leave. He just can't pick up his acres and move to Indiana and leave. So he is very committed to, not only once he wins the election in November, he's going to make sure we open up our state. We're never going to be in a situation again where we are masking our children. Isn't it ridiculous that in 2022 we're celebrating the day that our kids didn't have to wear masks? They should have never been in that position in the first place. But I don't know about you guys. 2 years ago, when this whole thing blew up, and we're trusting the government. They did such a good job of packaging this as, like apocalypse, and we were listening. And the first time, they were telling us that we shouldn't have dinner, we should just stay home. Every Sunday, my husband cooks for our kids. And I remember that first Sunday when Sadie was running, that's my 6-year-old granddaughter, she was 4 at the time, running up my driveway to hug me because we decided we're just going to have Sunday dinner anyway. We didn't know what was going on. I remember thinking for like a split second, either Sadie's killing me or I'm killing her because I'm an old lady. And what they did to us was amazing, and we're not going to let that happen again. Luckily, we're in a position now where we have so many Republicans running for the first time, which is very encouraging. As I travel the state of Illinois, people are coming up to me. I've never voted in a primary. I've never been a PC. Now people realize just how close we came to losing liberties that should have never been in jeopardy in the first place. And we were this island. Everybody else around us, the state was open. They didn't have all the masks, the mandates that we had, and how can a governor like the king decide what's essential and what's not essential? At the corner of my street, there's a breakfast restaurant that's been there forever. And all I kept thinking as it was shuttered, that you're going to tell me that waitress that knows my granddaughter's name, that her job isn't essential, or the guy that's wiping down the tables, or the cooks, those were essential jobs. But of course, all this was going on, what was essential, what wasn't, but we could go buy marijuana without any kind of problem. You go get an abortion without any kind of problem. And I know we've got some believers in here, and so many Christians will say to me, why don't you do politics? Well, politics did Christians and other believers the last 2 years when you couldn't go to church, or churches were shuttered, but everything else was going on. Liquor stores were essential, and never again should we be in a position where we can't go to church. And people will say, well, my church reached 5,000 people every Sunday. You can't save souls on a Zoom call. You can't put your hands on somebody and baptize somebody over a Zoom call. That's ridiculous that we couldn't worship in a state. In 2022, this is just unbelievable. And Darren Bailey has that record that you can go to. It's a solid conservative, Christian conservative, Second Amendment. He supports the police, all the things that are important right now that distinguishes us from the other party. A lot of you may know who Darren is, and you're wondering who I am. Well, I was born in Chicago and raised on the west side. I always say the best side of Chicago, because that's where I formed my family values. Growing up in the 60s and 70s, the West Side was a great place to grow up. I could walk 4 blocks and spend my McDonald's paycheck right in my community. Every store that was on State Street except Marshall Fields was right in my community. And we had grocery stores, booming economy. It was phenomenal. My mother sacrificed to send my sister and I to my sister, brother, and myself to Catholic school. So I know a couple people probably been lovingly tortured by nuns like I was. But we have the best handwriting as a result of going to Catholic schools. But what was so great that somebody told my mom, and here she is. She had me at 17. She was an orphan. And my sister at 19, and they told her, Regina, you should sacrifice and send your kids to private school. At the time, the neighborhood that we lived in, the schools weren't so great. So I was so appreciative that my mother took that opportunity to say, you know what, I'm going to drive an older car, and made a lot of sacrifices so that we could go to Catholic schools. And so that's something that's very important to me as well as Darren, and that's school choice. Darren and his wife opened up 2 Christian schools. Now, in 1994, the Archdiocese closed the school across the street from where I was living in Rogers Park. So my 2 kids would have had to go to a school in another neighborhood. But my husband grew up in the suburbs. He didn't understand why we were paying tuition in the first place. He's like, well, let's move to a community where they have great schools. And luckily enough, well, Al Gore hadn't invented the internet yet, so I couldn't look it up to find out where should we move. But my dad had bought a restaurant in Westmont. I spent the summer working there. I fell in love with DuPage County and thought this would be a great place to raise my kids. And I was told, don't move to DuPage County, you'll never fit in. Your kids will be victims of driving while black, you guys just won't fit in. And I'm so glad I did listen to those people. In 1994, we got off of 88, it wasn't called the Reagan yet, and immediately volunteered in our community and became just, proud Lisle residents. I always say Lisle is the best kept secret in DuPage County. It's a small community. We have less than 500 kids in our high school. And my son was prom king, my oldest. My daughter got a full academic scholarship to Benedictine University where she got her master's. All my kids got to grow up like everybody else in their community. They didn't feel targeted by the police. Even, I've got 5 kids, and I have to confess to everybody, you got 5 kids, it's a numbers game. You're gonna get a socialist. Even my socialist, he's my middle kid that challenges me constantly. He loves to correct my grammar, and I said, well, gosh, you must have gone to a really good school. And you have to, you worry about my dangling participles or whatever. But even when I'm arguing with him, I'm so blessed that he had an opportunity to be educated in such a great community. My kids are 36 to 17. I have a junior. And my goal is to get him out of the school without them telling him how to be a black man in 2022. It's like our numbers in my community used to be phenomenal. As far as Naperville, they had some of the best schools. But if you go to those websites now, they're so busy teaching CRT and not teaching critical theory thinking and teaching the alphabet community instead of teaching the actual alphabet, that these numbers are going down, and that's unfortunate. And we know that Zoom learning was no learning, and so a lot of kids are suffering from that. And again, when I think about growing up in Chicago and having the opportunity to be educated in a private school, but there's 300,000 children in Chicago that go to those public schools that are unfortunate. We love teachers, I know I do, but the teachers union in Chicago is way too powerful. They could shut down the school without the kids even Zoom learning. I'm so committed to making sure that people have an opportunity to pick what school they go to, because unfortunately if you're destined to go to that failing school just because that's your zip code, that's just not fair. As we're talking about parents, and we know that now the left is trying to take the P out of PTA. They don't want us showing up and talking. They don't want anybody with our values. They talk about diversity, and I was invited to go speak at the Downers Grove parent at the school board meeting. And when they got, people kind of know who I am. I was on the radio, and they realized I was going to get up in this packaging and talk about right of center values. And suddenly they decided that there were no more public, comments will be taken. And surprise, surprise. And even in my little town, where I sleepily, I'm just asleep at the wheel, thinking I could trust them. And I looked up at our school board. We were one of the last schools in the entire area to unmask our children. And I'm emailing all the time, like, what are we doing? The private school in our town unmasked. Naperville, Downers Grove, everybody's unmasked. And those 7 people who had the power all along to unmask our children, we're holding on to that, and it's unbelievable. That's why, with this next cycle, we need to have some groups getting together. We need to make sure we run a slate of people to get rid of those people that were willing to mask our children. As I Chicago in 1994, decided to move out to the suburbs. I'm so excited that I had an opportunity to move to a place that, to me, it was about my children growing up like I grew up on the west side in the 70s. It was a clean place to live, great quality of life, and so I became, because I was born in Chicago in this packaging, I wasn't born a Republican. You're not allowed to be a Republican. You're born, they slap you on the bottom, they put a D, and you just vote that way. You don't ask any questions, and that's just, everybody's a Democrat. It's just, that's what it is. But in 1994, we're living in Rogers Park, and my husband and I bought a car for like $1,500, and we're sharing a car, and it didn't have an FM radio, and he kept saying he was going to put one in, and he never did. It's one of those things on the honey-do list that never got done. But in between, we found WLS, and suddenly, started listening to talk radio. And I was an uninformed Democrat as well as my husband. But suddenly, even though I thought everybody on that station was completely crazy because they were right of center, but they were very entertaining, and I couldn't stop listening. Probably about 3 to 6 months in, I realized, oh my goodness, my values are more aligned with the Republican Party. I was afraid to come out of the closet initially. To my family, I used to say, well, I'm conservative. I didn't even want to use the R word because you're just not allowed to be a Republican in the black family in Chicago. Now, if I came to them on Christmas and said, hey, I'm struggling with drugs, they hug me and pray for me and send me to rehab. But you tell them that you're a Republican, there's no hope for you. You're crazy, you're ostracized, let's get out of here. And once, it's almost like becoming a Christian. Once I became a Republican, I was so fired up, I wanted to tell everybody. I just couldn't wait. There she is, the crazy Stephanie, talking about being a Republican. And that's just how I am. Ever since I've become a Republican, I've never pulled a Democrat ballot. Would never ever consider going back to the party that enslaved us, that believes in abortion, that doesn't believe in school choice, and so many issues that it's like they hate the black community, but they keep telling us how much they love the black community. I gotta tell you, I don't know why I didn't run for office a long time ago. I won this radio contest in my favorite radio station. It was like American Idol. I was supposed to have one show and that was it. But this is 2012, August, and I win this contest in my first show. I'm bashing Obama from Chicago. Black women in Chicago bashing Obama. It's the re-election year. The phones just never stop ringing. So WLS was kind enough to let me be a fill-in host for 18 months, and then they gave me my own show. And so one show led to a 7-year career of me working really hard every weekend, scheduling my own guests and just hustling and doing everything I needed to do. I got to interview Ronald Reagan's son 3 times, not the one that's named after him, but the other one, Michael Reagan. I got to interview Juanita Broadway. I was very blessed, and again, just worked really hard. And being on the radio in Chicago, I thought it was important that I have Democrats in my studio. I love arguing with them. I mean, I like preaching to the choir, so to speak, but I would bring them in studio if they're a candidate, if they're elected official, and I have a piece of Trump chocolate right in front of the microphone, and see how long it would take them to eat it, And I just developed this just need to try to encourage, because I keep thinking, to me, being a conservative is common sense, and so to debate with them, it's like, well, I want you to convince me that I'm wrong, but I have yet to find one of them that can explain to me how that party is better for anybody, let alone black people. And I love the fact that I'm just as, I didn't go to college, but I can love debating with people with letters in front of their names, behind their names, because I'm going to tell you what I know and not what I heard, and they can't handle that. Unfortunately, one of my classmates passed away, and I went to his funeral today. I got on the expressway at Cicero, and then went up to Roosevelt, went over to Pulaski and Roosevelt, and it just breaks my heart. I think about how I would walk down Keeler, that was like the major street, and it's just garbage, and the alderman's office sits at Roosevelt and Keeler, and you look across the street, this abandoned building with awnings hanging. So at least if you're looking at this every day as an elected official, when you want to tear that down, when you want to pick up garbage, it blows me away that these people, they'll tell me, Stephanie, you're Republican, you live in the suburbs, you've forgotten where you come from. And I'm like, no, you guys forgot where I came from. It looks nothing like where I grew up, where I had such pride to say that I was from the West Side. And so as a candidate, and certainly after our victory in November, there's no way I'm going to rest until the West Side of Chicago gets a Whole Foods, gets a grocery store. When I was a kid, we had 2 different grocery stores. We would say we're going to the Jewels, and we would say which one, Mommy's Jewel or Robert's Jewel. And my stepdad, both of those jewels are gone now. There's no grocery store, major chain on the West Side of Chicago. That's unacceptable. And it's time for Republicans who've been guilty of not communicating our platforms to a group of people that really would benefit from our platform. But we kind of felt like, well, they always vote Democrats, so what's the point? And good, bad, or indifferent, what we didn't like about Bronner, that's something that he was unafraid to go into the black community and set up offices. And he did win that first time because he did convince people that, hey, give us a chance. It's like President Trump said, what do you have to lose? I'm excited about the fact that 7 years on the radio in Chicago has prepared me for everything that's coming at me. Just go ahead, what can you say to me, what can you do? I had to do a lot of research, I had to be prepared, and this is an opportunity that I feel so ready for. I got to tell you a little secret though, we've had so many Republicans running, which is great. All of the other lieutenant governor candidates were I either worked with them, they've been to my house for dinner, or they've been guests on my show. And the one woman that I didn't know, Paul Schimpf, lieutenant governor, she and I have become friends. She had on a really nice name tag, and she told me where I could get it. So we see each other, we hug each other. We're having a good time because it's almost like Groundhog Day. We go to the same events, we see each other constantly. And everything was great because we were united on, we got to fire J.B. Pritzker. That's who our common enemy is. So there was no backfighting, there was no personal attacks until a Democrat entered our race. And suddenly, I don't know if anybody's gotten text messages about me and Darren. I know, let's just say it, because I'm not a professional politician, I'm not a professional candidate, but I am a parent that tells my kids not to lie. So suddenly, when you have that much money, you can fill people's phones with all kinds of lies. And I go to events and senior citizens, well, I'm a senior citizen almost, but they'll show me their little flip phones that I got this text message about Darren or a text message about me. I was shocked a couple Wednesdays ago. I get a text message from that campaign about me, and it's like, dear friend. I'm like, you're no friend of mine because you're talking about me. But because I know everybody, I go up to these people on that campaign. I said, so what are you gonna, what's next? Give me a heads up, and you guys are gonna, talk about me running over my neighbor's dog about 15 years ago. I'm like, what kind of campaign are you running where you're not talking about your candidate and how great it is, that you feel the need to lie to people saying that Darren Bailey was lockstep with J.B. Pritzker's mask mandates and shut down. That we know nothing else about Darren, you know that's a lie. And so all I can say is that it's so important that just because someone has the more money and they have a more opportunity to communicate these lies, but you know what, Darren Bailey has worked hard for over a year. You can't buy the kind of loyalty that he has earned by crisscrossing this state and me trying to keep up with him. amazing what him and Cindy are able to do. He did a 20-stop tour. I flippantly said, oh, I want to work harder than them, so they gave me 22 stops. I'll never say that again. But I'm having so much fun that I couldn't understand how did they get the energy, what keeps them going. But every time you go to an event like this or a small town, especially in Southern Illinois, and somebody tells you something that just motivates you, recharges your battery every time. I cannot wait to get to the next stop. I go to bed exhausted, but I'm having the time of my life. I should have run for office a long time ago, because people invite you to come and talk about politics. I'm like, hello, I love talking about politics. And what's very exciting is that I get to go to black churches and I get to say the R word. I get to say I'm a Republican, I'm a Christian, and this is what you need to be voting your values. Again, any questions about Darren, myself, people can ask me. I know the campaign that just got in the race recycled the whole thing about me being a never Trumper. That was addressed December 13th when Darren Bailey announced me at my little town in a little coffee shop. We get on the bus, and the trolls right away went back 6 years. That summer when I was upset with Trump. But again, I was a Ted Cruz supporter, unapologetic, and a lot of people were hesitant about candidate Trump. Was I the only one? No. But in September of 2016, I got on the Trump train and never looked back. So in order for them to find this summer when I was upset with Trump, they literally had to go through thousands of posts of me at the White House, me, with my Trump hat on. I had a convertible in 2020. I had my Trump visor on with my Black Voices for Trump bumper sticker on the back of my car. And my oldest said, Mom, you're gonna need some pepper spray. And I'm like, I'm gonna touch this thing out here in your face. Nobody's gonna say anything to me. For anybody to question my allegiance to Trump is so ridiculous anyway. But we already addressed that in December. They hopped in the race and they're recycling that information. It's unbelievable what they're saying. But again, if you have a question about how Darren voted on something, that's one thing, or what I said, and this is my policy, and this is what I believe in. But to say that I'm not worthy to be lieutenant governor because I didn't like Trump in the summer of 2016, unbelievable. So I just encourage everybody to do your due diligence, make sure you know who you're voting for. And again, Darren has a record. You don't have to question what he believes. You know what he believes in, and you don't have to, I wonder how he's going to vote for this, because he's been out there shaking hands, meeting people, going to places, and everybody is almost everywhere I go, somebody's had an opportunity to talk to Darren Bailey, because he's never, idle. He's constantly crisscrossing the state, and the only downside to that is that when we first announced, we got on a bus together for 3 days, and now we're dividing and conquering this big state, so I don't get to spend a whole lot of time with him and Cindy, but when we do, it's such a pleasure, and I'm being treated so kindly everywhere I go, especially south of 80. Darren has started this movement, this family, and they're so welcoming. Some of them have heard my show when they would be on their tractors and say, I would listen to you, and other people have no idea who I am, but they'll say, if Darren likes you, that means I love you, so, welcome to the family. And so, BaileyForIllinois.com, he's on Facebook, he's on social media, he's out there working really hard, and people will say, well, how's it going to resonate in the College County? He talks funny. He's got a southern accent. And I said, well, south of 80, everybody talks like that. We're the ones that talk funny up here. And they said, well, a southern accent makes you sound not like you're not too smart. But no offense, it's that Chicago accent that's been betraying us the last 20-something years. That's the one you shouldn't be trusting, So, hey, when I hear somebody say, hey, friend, or they have a southern accent, that makes me think of southern hospitality. That's the person that's going to offer me some pie, whether I like pie or not. And they're just ma'am and sir and thank you. I'm like, we need a little bit of that, especially in Springfield. Illinois is not broken. Illinois is not deep blues. It's Springfield that's broken. And south of 80, you see the American flag, you see Trump signs. Just up here is where we've been getting it wrong, according to them down there. And their voices, they feel like their voices need to be heard. And hey, I can't wait to get into Chicago. I can't wait. I want to go pick up some garbage in my old neighborhood and say, J.B. Pritzker, what's up with that? I mean, it's just unbelievable. I cannot, I'm just eager to get right back into that. And again, being on the radio in Chicago for 7 years, I know everybody. I would shock you how many text messages I get from Democrats, from union leaders, because they got to know me. We can talk about our kids. Hey, I want to help you. I want to help Darren win. And if I said one name, it was everybody would fall out of this chair, wanting somebody really big, their brother. And I thought they were just kidding me. And they said, no, I want to help you. They want to help Darren Bailey because they're sick of it too. They're sick of the gas prices, what they are, and taxes, and the fact that you can live in a little southern suburb of Chicago that's right up, right up next. They can work really hard, pay off their little bungalows, their American dream, and they still have to leave because the taxes are so high, and they just leave their houses and they don't even try to sell them. That's unfortunate. I don't know about you guys. I'm tired of good people that I love and respect. They're gone now because they just simply can't afford to live here. I'll reach out to somebody, I'm like, I haven't seen you at any activities. Oh, I moved to Naples 2 years ago. I'm like, You almost can't, we can't compete with Florida's weather, but people that are moving to other Midwest states, why are they moving? Illinois is phenomenal. It's a great place to live. Why are we losing all these good people? So I could go on forever and ever. So if you have a question, please jump in.
Stephanie, thanks for coming out and introducing yourself, because honestly, I didn't know who you were.
Oh, okay. You mean you didn't listen to me on the radio?
Well, I know, honestly, I probably had listened to you on the radio, I just didn't know.
No, I'm teasing. And you know what, the first time I ever heard of Homer Glenn, a caller called into WLS, and I was like, he's making up stuff now. Homer Glenn, what kind of town is this? The first time I'd ever heard of Homer Glenn, so that's no problem.
So I have a comment and question for you.
Okay.
So I'm glad to see that, to hear that you grew up in Chicago. And it's relevant to my next question. I'm 60 years old, I voted Republican my entire life. I've sat there, watched all the returns come in. The Democrat machine in Chicago and Cook County waits for the Southern vote to come in Illinois, and then they figure out how many votes they need to defeat whoever won down south. I've seen it so many times that I can't explain it. So how are you going to, forget about the south of 80, how are you going to take over the north of 80? That's the question, and that's going to be your biggest hurdle.
You know, there's kind of that joke that in Chicago, corruption and stealing elections, and I always think about election night. Chicago can certify a vote within 2 hours, where those other states were fumbling around with you know, bins and trying to figure it out, and that's unfortunate. But I hope people in this room are aware of who Carol Davis is in Illinois Conservative Union and what she's doing with voter integrity. But so many people are now realizing that they have to be election judges, that they have to be poll watchers. It's just that simple. You have to. If you're there, that's how Virginia works. Over 90% of the precincts in Virginia were covered by Republicans. And I was in a tiny pizza place, I couldn't even tell you the name of the town. And this woman at the end, she said, can I go be a poll watcher in Chicago? Because she figured that's where the need is. We're working with Carol Davis and those other groups with Freedom Works. I went to, back in October, long before Darren even picked me, I got to go and spend the weekend at Freedom Works in DC talking about voter integrity. It's so important now. Now we realize this isn't a joke about vote early, vote often. Carol has a group, has one department where it's called Let Them Rest in Peace, meaning let's get the dead people off of her. We joke about that, but I know in my little town that one of my best friends, you know, she was a really good friend, and then Trump came along, so needless to say, we're not best friends anymore. But she was the second wife, and every time she would go vote, our kids are 28, 29, and he lost his first wife when our kids were 6. And now, still on the voting roll. So she has to tell them, no, I'm not that Mrs. So-and-so, but I'm this one. Why are they on the voting rolls? You know, I worked for Jeannie Ives this last cycle. I had never worked on a campaign, so I had my phone loaded with the app. And I go to an address, and the person would say, oh no, that was 3 owners ago. And I was like, okay, so that's not updated. Or, you know, I grew up in Chicago, I know how to read an address. So if this is 708, and then there's 712, and there's supposed to be a 710 in between, and there's no way a building could have ever existed there, how could people be registered in a place that they couldn't possibly, there was never a building? Or in my town, we had a flood come through a few years ago, so the whole block got wiped off, but there's still people registered, and that's just, we got to do something about that. They say that's racist to want to clear the voting rolls, but I listen to Democrat radio, and Dorothy Tillman says the reason that Harold Washington got elected is because they cleaned the voting rolls. And so they talk about those Democrat policies back in the day, they used them, but now suddenly it's racist. But no, we're going to be, you know, watching, we're going to make sure, I think nobody, we can't go backwards, but nobody is going to be asleep at the wheel come 2020, because so many people went to bed thinking we had a victory. You woke up and you're like, wait a minute, and that just didn't happen here, it happened all over the country.
Well, you're breath of fresh air.
Oh, you're so kind.
You kind of hit on it, but real important issue for schools, and that don't matter if you're rich or poor or whatever, it's vouchers. And, you know, so where does Darren stand and you on vouchers?
Well, you know, money should follow the student, and that's at the end of the day. I went to Catholic schools, and my sister, her first year, she went to Catholic school with me, and then she got into Whitney Young. She saved my mother some money, and it's a great place to get an education, but it's so unfortunate that not everybody can get into a Whitney Young. You have to know somebody or whatever. So that's very important, because I think about it, Chicago has these phenomenal models where they're educating kids very well. Whitney Young, Walter Payton, there's so many. How come all the schools can't be like that. So obviously that's something that I'm very committed to. And Darren opening up not one but 2 Christian schools, that's something that's at the top of my list, because how are you going to break the cycle of poverty if these kids don't even get a chance to learn how to read? And so that's just not lip service. That's something that I'm really...
If you had vouchers, you wouldn't, there'd be competition, so the garbage schools would have to close.
Exactly.
That's why I brought it up.
Right, and a little competition is a good thing, and hopefully a lot of people decided to run for state rep, run for state senate, so, because Darren's going to need some help down there in Springfield. When he gets down there, we're going to have to turn over some tables like Jesus in the Temple or like the Jersey Housewives. We got to do something different. Hopefully enough people are challenging their rhinos and challenging those Democrats in this time around.
Yes, I was there with Darrell when he said that he is for vouchers.
Yeah, yeah.
100%. But one question I wanted to ask is, being a retired person, nobody in school, $4,500, I'm paying for these schools. My voucher goes where? To where I should want my money to go. So if I see that I want to give my money to a faith school or to the Catholic school for $4,500, that's where my voucher of it, that's where I would want to send my money. So it's just not the kids, where the kids are going, it's how the taxpayer themselves, where they want their money to go. Or if I want to use it for prescription drugs, or if I need it for something else. This is something that I would like to see happen, instead of $4,500 going to nothing right now.
Or better yet, like in Georgia, maybe you could change the law and anyone over 65 would not have to pay taxes towards the school system. That is the way they do it there. And I'd rather see that, and you spend your money wherever you want to spend it, instead of government telling you where you could possibly spend it. So if you could keep that on the back burner.
And I know they do something similar to what you were saying in Phoenix. In Arizona, they do something similar. You can decide where your money, what school you can support. So we've got a lot of things that we've got to fix here, and obviously education is so important because, again, that's where the majority of our taxes go. And so people should be able to speak up and have a voice. And then if you think about seniors, they're on a fixed income, and the more and more these taxes go up, all these taxing bodies, the library, everybody nickel and dime you to death. They'll say it's only $2, it's only this at the end of the year. You know, everybody's hit your pocket, and when you're on a fixed income, you know, that's very important.
I do have a question. With the other Republican candidates that are running for governor, has there been any talk or is there a scheduled debate between the Republican candidates?
Yeah, there is a scheduled debate. I believe it's in May. I don't know exactly, and I believe everybody on... Is it the 22nd? And everybody that's in the race all made the ballot and all got our signatures. We got over 18,000 signatures, you know, which was amazing, and that we didn't have to pay for them. Didn't cost us one nickel, just people. We have over 10,000 volunteers signed up across the state, eager to work for Darren. And it's just not so much he has an amazing team, and his volunteers work like they're CEOs of a company, and our supporters are just phenomenal. He's really started a family, trust me. Really. Any other questions? Anything? This is great.
How about that bail reform? I know Sims is always writing up something, and the Black Caucus gets together. How can we actually stop these terrifying bills coming out to destroy Illinois? How can you have somebody take $900 or whatever it is, and Fox lets them go and turns around and away they walk out? I know we have to get our state rep and our state senators, we have to really get in, but how is it in the black community? I know I was a Teamster. I worked 60% with black guys. I've seen it. I know how they talk. I mean, it is something to see, but a lot of them were my friends. I was, like I said, a Teamster, a union guy, ran for office at 705. Lost by 275 votes. And I understand about ballots and mail-in ballots. So how are we going to stop that? How are we actually going to stop the mail-in ballot in Chicago to 2 to 3, like the gentleman was saying back there? These are big issues.
It's a very big issue. I listen to the Black Talk station. It's a Democrat station, WVON, every day, because I felt it was my responsibility as a radio host just not to listen to conservatives, but to hear what the people that are living in the city, what they think. And I still wake up every day and I listen to it. And they're not happy. The people that live in those communities just trying to get from their doorstep to the bus stop without getting shot, they're not happy that it seems like the bad guys have more rights than what we have now. I don't understand from coast to coast, people in Kim Foxx's position making it where it used to be $300, it was a felony, and now it's up to $1,000, and you can steal $999 worth of Nikes, and it's not even a felony. And I don't know about you guys, growing up in Chicago, for the price of a token, I could go downtown and I was transformed. We go to the best movie theaters, walking up and down State Street and Michigan Avenue. We were called the second city, not because we were second to New York, but because we rebuilt the city. It's a beautiful city. Our architecture was amazing. When I go to Chicago now, it's so dirty. It's a place that people don't even want to go to in the daytime because you can get carjacked by a 12-year-old. And now the Magnificent Mile has plywood windows, stores that we decided that I'm not going to open again. And I'm thinking, this is what Lori Lightfoot, this is what the left has done to the city that I love. It's unbelievable that it's just, it's unrecognizable, the dirt and the potholes. And again, who wants to go downtown to have a 12-year-old carjack you? And obviously law and order is something that's very important. And again, as long as we communicate that to the people living in those communities, because they're the ones that have to go back and they see a guy get arrested for having a gun, they look up, he's at the corner store 2 days later, and they're thinking like, what's the point of turning someone in if they're going to beat you back home? I mean, the whole thing that Kim Foxx and Lori Lightfoot and J.B. Pritzker, they live in a bubble. They have security. They don't have to worry about that. And I don't know about you guys, I don't remember the last time J.B. Pritzker came out and said anything about a 12-year-old getting shot in the back of her head on her birthday. I mean, this stuff goes on all the time, and he lives in the city, and it's as if nothing's, you know, like everything is great and we know it's not. I mean, just the pandering, if you follow him, and he and Juliana Stratton on their pages, and now they're going into the black community, and now they're going to address all these issues because it's election time. Unbelievable that the loyalty that the black voters have to the Democrat Party. And you know, we were down there turning our petitions in, and all these people running up, hugging them, and giving them kisses, and I could barely keep my breakfast down. I don't understand that. Then once he gets inside, JB and Juliana put on the mask. I'm like, you've been hugging strangers for 20 minutes, but you get in there, and all of this theater and all this that's going on, unbelievable. It's time for us just to stand up and say enough is enough. And we're holding our Republican leadership accountable, because unfortunately we have way too many Republicans that you can't distinguish them from the Democrats. Let's just be honest. And right now, they have the cushiest jobs you can imagine, because they get to come to a meeting like this and say, oh yeah, I'm listening, but I don't have any power. I can't do anything. And they still get their paychecks. They're still going to get their pensions. And I got to tell you guys, I feel like I'm writing this book that I got to put aside to after election. I was going to run for state rep, because Jeannie Ice called me in June and said, you should run for my old seat. And I was, you know, whatever. I spent a couple of weeks thinking about it, so I spent the whole summer, you know, preparing for either Darren's going to pick me, if not, I'm going to run for state rep. And the leadership in the Republican Party giving me advice, telling me to stick to the middle of the road issues. Just talk about public safety and talk about high taxes. I'm like, what about school choice? Just go to our website, Reimagine Illinois. It sounds like a John Lennon song. And just adapt those talking points. And I'm thinking, this is our leadership telling me to be mushy and in the middle. I do everything on the right. Nobody listened to my show for 7 years, but they would hear me get up and talking in the middle. They think I have lobotomy or something. I'm thinking, this is our leadership. So it wasn't surprising that the people that were on that Zoom call giving me advice were on the ticket with the Democrat. It didn't surprise me. I'm like, yeah, because they don't even embrace the Republican platform and our values, because they're just there, they don't want to ruffle any feathers, they don't want to turn over any tables, they don't want to turn Springfield purple or even, you know, red. And if Virginia can do it, we can do it. So we need to hold our elected officials with an R by their names and call them out for who they are. It's just that simple, because they're doing more damage to us. How come, you know, Wisconsin, Michigan all had crazy Democrat governors, but I could go to the beach in Michigan and I could go to a restaurant and see my waitress's face, because they have Republicans that stood up to the governor and said, you can't do that. We don't have enough of that going on here. We just have people go along to get along, and this is just how, we don't have any power, and they're not even trying. But Democrats don't have a problem coming into a deep red county like DuPage County. When I moved there in 1994, it was a red county, and they just keep coming, and they cook your DuPage, they cook your counties, they chip away a little bit. They fight. They don't give up, but we just say, oh no. When I was on the radio with the last cycle for mayor, we had 16 people running for mayor. 16. So the Republican head of the Republican Illinois Party comes into my studio, or maybe he called in, and my first question for him was like, where's our candidate for mayor? And he was so taken aback by that, because he just wanted to talk about his campaign. He was running for Cook County Board re-election or something. And he was just blown away that I was just like, seriously, we don't even have a dog catcher on the ballot. We just surrender, and we used to show up and fight, and then we would show up and surrender. Now we don't even show up now. We just say, well, there's no hope for Chicago. And I can argue with Democrats on social media all day long. I can argue with them on my show, but they can always win the argument. They'll say, Stephanie, I live in Chicago. There were no Republicans to vote for. And I'm like, yep, because we don't even put Republicans in certain positions. And it's a new day and age now that there should be no positions left unchallenged where there's not a Republican challenging a Democrat. My joke is that if I had to run to be Mrs. Stephanie Trussell every 4 years, I might have to learn how to cook. But that's another story. I'm like, a little competition is a good thing. And how do you get so complacent that they don't even have to, when you think about Danny Davis and those people, they don't even have to print campaign signs. And every time I get a Democrat that was challenging them, I don't care if they were a Democrat, I have them in my show, I give them an hour. I said, you're going up against, Bobby Rush, you're going up against Danny Davis, those dinosaurs need to be taken down. There'll be some little 33-year-old, pie-in-the-eye kid that's a Democrat, but I didn't care. I'm like, those people need to go down. And Republicans just like, oh, we don't have anybody. Unbelievable, but I know this is the best time to be a Republican in Illinois, in my opinion. If we blow this in November, if we wake up and J.B. Pritzker's our governor again, God bless Illinois, I'm telling you. You think 114,000 people left last year, there'll be nobody here to even turn off the lights. It will be horrible. So that's why we got Illinois. I'm sorry?
God help Illinois.
Thank you. So that's why we got to stand together. We're working hard. Darren Bailey's the front runner, and that's when I challenged my friends on that ticket, and they're attacking us. It's like, Stephanie, you guys are the front runner. You got to expect attacks. Well, attack Darren on his voting policies. Attack me on something I said on the radio, but don't lie about me. That's ridiculous. I'm like, give me something of substance, and I don't mind taking I can go on the west side of Chicago. I used to ride the Pulaski bus. I can survive anything. I'm not a thin skin by any means. So, but I'm like, come at me with substance and something of value. This Stephanie doesn't like Trump. Ooh, I'm like, really? That's the best you got? But this is the kind of race we're in. It just got very swampy, but that's okay. We know what we need to do, and we're still working hard, even though we're the front runners. We're running like we're in last place. We're just not going to give up, and we keep pounding it out. And I'm just trying to keep up with Darren and Cindy, and I'm having a lot of fun. And really quick, my husband and I opened up a restaurant in Lisle. The Subway closed after, J.B. Pritzker decided business wasn't essential. This business didn't survive. And for 2 years on Maple and Route 53, our busiest intersection in my little town, was an ugly eyesore just sat there. And the people that grew up in Lisle remember when there was a dog and suds. But since we moved there, it had always been a Subway. So we were very blessed. In January, we opened up Boss Dogs, DAWGZ. And because Subway left the ovens there, we get to bake our buns every day, which is amazing. My husband in the beginning was like that 80s commercial, I gotta make the donuts, I gotta make the buns, and we ran out. He could never stay open at 6:30 because he would run out of buns. He's finally figured that out. So we're committed. I don't wanna have to drive to or fly to visit my granddaughter, Sadie, who goes to the same school where her parents went to. We're not going anywhere. We love Illinois, we invest in Illinois. We wouldn't, I don't know who opens up a business, a restaurant in Illinois in January, my husband. And here I am running for office. We're both doing something we've never done, and let's do it at the exact same time. It's kind of crazy. So I'm there in the daytime, wiping tables, talking to customers, and cutting fries, and then I go to events like this in the evening, and then people hug me an extra second. I'm like, I must still smell like the fries. Because you guys are Chicagoans, if you go to a Chicago-style restaurant and they're not cutting their fries, that's not a Chicago-style hot dog restaurant. So I hope you guys, if you're in the Lisle area, come on in, and we take money from Democrats and Republicans and independents or whatever. So we're just having so much fun, just trying to, just fight for this wonderful state. It's the great state of Illinois. That's how I like this college now. But any questions, or you just?
I want to ask one last question. I'm surprised no one asked this of you. It's important. Can you define the word woman?
Well, I have to go to Harvard. I'm not a doctor. Oh my gosh. mother, and not saying you have to be a mother to be a woman, but certainly as a mother of 5 children and nurse 3 of them, I know exactly what a woman is. I'm never ever gonna be, this woman obviously was so worried about offending the woke left side that she couldn't say what was common sense and what makes sense to everyone. Here you are being celebrated for being the first Black woman in Women's Month, and you can't find that word. That is just unbelievable.
That's a good thing to say.
One more thing I want to say, because we from Bridgeport area and stuff, and, in terms of the Black communities, and I say so heartily, you moved to Lyle, welcome with open arms, right?
Right,
I lived in Naperville in 1978, and there were 4 Black people in the whole entire school. The girl, a large woman, was Spring Queen, probably they wanted to welcome her in, and I actually sat behind her, and we would argue during class that define black and white. So put your hand up against something black, it's not even close.
Right.
Be against something white. We would joke around, and that's what we need more of.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so you came to Lyle, she came to Naperville. I would like to know, like going to Englewood, if they would somehow open a door for me and say, you're welcome to come in our neighborhood and have a nice dinner, have a nice lunch or whatever, I'd be more than happy to. But they offer really nothing to appease, I would say, white people, and because it's not advertised as such. Now in Bridgeport, the homeless people, they're making pots for them now. These tents, they're all under or ceramic. These orange pots, it's like they're advertising for homeless people now, and making it comfortable for them.
It's unbelievable that common sense. It's just, if you go to DC now, there's so many tents there. I've been blessed to go quite a bit. I go to CPAC every year. And this last time I was there with Freedom Works, it smells like marijuana, like as if Bath and Body Works has a plug-in. Everywhere you go, it smells like marijuana. And there are pods, there are tents everywhere. And it's just unbelievable. I mean, it's really sad, but you know what? You from Bridgeport, I went to high school with a lot of girls. I went to high school in 56 and Pulaski, all-girls school. A lot of girls came from Bridgeport, so I'm very familiar with the area. But, oh no, I was a Lordian. Maria's our enemy, but no, it was very good. But yeah. So I am, again, I have the scars from, going to Catholic school from 2nd grade through high school when the nuns could beat you. And could you imagine the day they had to tell the nuns, we can't beat kids anymore? Like, give me your rulers and your pointers, you can't beat your kids anymore. They would just probably, but you know what, we got in trouble. We've never been home and told our parents that Sister Mary Holy Water beat us because, hey, my mom paid hard money for us to go there, and you making this lady beat you. You would never tell them because you didn't want them to know that you were up there acting up. But those, of course, I don't advocate for people, teachers to hit kids, but that's how it was back in the day, and it kept us in line. But thank you guys so much, and I hope you give Darren Bailey a chance.
Clarify some things, trying to move it along to make sure she had enough time to talk, because it was good talk. But we want to congratulate Carmen Barella. He is the new builder. He's also the guy that's going to tell us all about what we got in our monies.
Not much, Steve. So we got about $950 in our bank account right now. We did pay our rent and utilities, $4,000, and then another $800 for utilities. That kind of drained our account, but I think we're good till, November? September?
Yeah, I don't remember. I got it written down.
Yeah,
but
so
we're going to be good.
We're good for a while. So,
like I said, the candidates, I've got commitments from the candidates that they're going to be paying the money, so we'll be back. But the other thing is, I forgot candidates that are running. You guys want to stand up, the ones that are running the primary or the general? Just judges, too. You're a candidate. All the judges.
Justice Miguelski, folks, how are you? Don Wilkin. 389, 35th District, Chicago.
Mount Greenwood, so he's not from around here, so tell your friends in Mount Greenwood to vote for us. And the other thing is,
tell your friends in Mount Greenwood we're having a Darren Bailey event April 10th at Cork and Carries.
Already got it.
Oh, very good. Okay.
When we have our endorsement, we don't endorse necessarily one person. We can endorse, if there's 5 governor candidates, we can endorse all 5. So what we do is they have to get 70% of the vote. So if Darren gets 70%, and I don't want to say the guy because I don't particularly care for him, gets 70% of the vote, then you know, he can be endorsed too. And Ray Mike can get 70%, he's endorsed, Chip can get 70%, you know, we go down the list. And that way it's in a primary, so we back whoever wins the general. But we want to have the people that are running, because we have a pretty large group, we're 471 right now. And the last election, just so you remember this, because the last election is like a lifetime away from everybody. But the last election, we ran 22 people. 3 of the people were in the hospital for pretty much the entire time with different, I don't know what they're called, but I never bother asking because I don't believe in that crap. You don't ask people personal stuff. But we won 18 seats out of 22 with 3 people not in. All Republicans is a strong group. And we're going to continue to win. And that's the important thing for us to take to the streets, because once it starts rolling, we're dependent on everybody to come out and get their people out. And that's how we won last time. And we're going to do it again. And once the primary is over, whoever wins, I don't care if it's even the guy I said I don't prefer, we'll get behind that guy too. And one other person wanted to say something, Mr. Fialco.
Have you talked about the committeemen that have made it onto the ballot for June 28th? And can we cover that a little bit?
We've got 19 committeemen now. And I put people in, I'm saying the wrong words. I found people that wanted to run for most all the spots except for 2. I didn't search out to get the 2 because I wanted to make sure I had Larry Bacala and John Walters appointed to something. So I kept those 2 vacant. So if I get lucky enough to be the chairman again, then what will happen is I'm going to appoint them. I already told them, you know, that they'll get appointed because it turned out nobody ran against us. So our committeemen are opposed, so we don't have that race that normally I was expecting we'd have at least 4, 5, 6 races. And for our commitment, we do signs, literature, and everything, mailers, just like it would be for a larger race. Because if they're going to be our group, we don't put anybody out to the dogs. We support everybody. And we only believe in one thing, winning. We don't do anything else but win. And there's no other option. We are going to win. And get that in everybody's head. And we all stick together. And that's how we do it.
May I speak just one more time, if you don't mind? Hi, I'm Dan Fialco. I am a trustee in the village of Homer Glen. Some big things have happened just recently. We brought in Carmen Morella as our village manager now. But I want everybody as committeemen and the public to know that we had gone through almost about 12 village managers, between being village manager, interim village manager, or some other form of that. So we have never had somebody who's got the foundation that Carmen has. Carmen's lived here his whole life. He's raised his family here his whole life. How many years have you lived here, Carmen?
40 years.
40 years. So that is something that we haven't had. And that commitment from somebody who's been here for a long time, it was voted on today, as Steve said a little bit earlier. We hired Carmen Morella as our village manager now. In addition to that, there are some, Carmen's going to stay with us for a long, long time, and we're going to all work together to make things right here. Steve came out with the 2017 Fix Where We Live. So this is part of that Fix Where We Live mentality. In addition to that, today we voted on another item, and it's to go on the referendum, to put it to the public whether the clerk's position will be elected or appointed. So that will, for the committeemen in here, it's important to you, for you to know, to tell your constituents that that's going to be on the ballot. And I believe the clerk herself is in support of letting that go out to a vote. Is that correct, Christine? She is in support of that. And the reason for that is because anybody can run, that job is so important. And as far as I know, Christine's not running for that position for the next election. But what we want to do is put it to the voters, and to make sure that the voters are saying whether, you know, we want to elect a clerk or we want to have that appointed. And we think by appointing a clerk is the best option, because then we can say somebody who's got a background, who can do these things that will represent the village in the best way that we can be represented. So for the committeemen in here, if you can pass that on when it comes up as in conversation with your constituents, that is why we're doing that. So that would be it. Thank you for it.
Thank you, Dan.
Time to adjourn the meeting to go to mugshots. I should say recess the meeting to mugshots. So God bless you guys, and thanks for coming out.